Number 7. Crypto Queen. Ruja Ignatova, who's notoriously known as the Crypto Queen, was added to the FBI's most wanted list in June 2022 for securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and more. Ruja is best known as the founder of a cryptocurrency scheme called OneCoin, which was described simply by the Times as one of the biggest scams in history. She was accused of defrauding investors out of more than $4 billion. She is now the 11th woman in 72 years to be placed on the top 10 most wanted list. She co-founded OneCoin in 2014 with her partner Carl Sebastian Greenwood. According to Special Agent Ronald Shimko, countless victims worldwide were financially devastated by this. The feds think Ruja was tipped off by someone close to her. She was under an international and federal probe shortly before being charged in the Southern District Court of New York. Unfortunately, the woman has been on the run ever since 2017, the year she was formally charged, and she's continued to avoid police at every turn. On October 25, 2017, Ruja traveled from Bulgaria to Athens in Greece, her last known location. The woman speaks German, Bulgarian, and English. The FBI believes that she's likely using a fake passport as well. She naturally has dark hair and brown eyes, but investigators think that she may have changed her appearance to blend in. To this day, Ruja remains at large. Number 6. MS-13 gang leader. Yulan Adonai Archaga Correas, sometimes referred to as Alexander Mendoza or Porky, is the alleged leader of a violent criminal organization called MS-13. He was added to the FBI's most wanted list in November 2021. Yulan is currently wanted for several things including narcotics trafficking, racketeering, and firearms offenses. He's allegedly in charge of the MS-13 Honduras section, and it's believed he's also providing narcotics, firearms, and cash to members of the gang operating within the U.S. Authorities have accused Yulan of being the man responsible for ordering the death of multiple rival gang members. At the moment, the FBI still thinks Yulan is hiding out somewhere in Honduras. The criminal was initially charged in New York's Southern District, and he's the 536th fugitive to earn a place on the wanted list. It's believed that he facilitated the transportation of several tons of cocaine that originated in Honduras, but somehow ended up in the U.S. through an unknown means of transportation. Yulan is also accused of conspiracy to possess machine guns that were utilized by gang members supporting international drug trafficking. A Honduran tribunal convicted Yulan of conspiracy as well as a few other charges in August 2018, resulting in a lengthy prison sentence. But before being taken behind bars, he managed to escape Honduran custody in early 2020, when about 20 of his accomplices wore military and police uniforms as disguises and stormed into the courthouse where Yulan was scheduled for a hearing. Multiple actual police officers were killed during the dangerous escape. The 40-year-old fugitive has black hair and brown eyes, and it's believed that he only speaks Spanish. He's about 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs roughly 160 pounds. Although authorities think he's in Honduras at the moment, he really could be anywhere in the world, so be sure to keep an eye out for this dangerous criminal. Number 5. Hugene Palmer. Hugene Palmer is a fugitive from Stony Point, New York, wanted for taking the life of his daughter-in-law Tammy back in 2012. He wasn't officially placed on the FBI's most wanted list until May 2019 though. On the morning of September 24, 2012, after escorting her 2 young children to the school bus, Tammy would never return home. It's believed that Palmer hid and waited out in the woods, then fired at Tammy with his shotgun while she walked back to her house. He first struck her in the arm, and then moved closer in order to hit her at close range in the chest, proving fatal. Immediately after the shooting, Palmer fled the scene in body in his green Dodge Ram pickup truck. While the truck would soon be found outside Harriman State Park, located in Rockland County, Palmer was nowhere in sight. The last known trace of the criminal was picked up by search dogs who followed the man's scent to a remote, secluded campground in the woods. But since then, there's been no other reported sightings or traces of the man, and he remains missing to this day. A federal arrest warrant was issued for the fugitive on June 10, 2013, but according to the Haverstraw police, Palmer's family members have expressed that they truly believe he died in Harriman State Park. This theory has been widely dismissed by a severe lack of evidence and the fact that despite multiple searches of the area, his body has not been recovered. Palmer is an expert outdoorsman and an experienced angler, hiker, and hunter. He does depend on several medications for diabetes and his heart condition though, and his left thumb is deformed. This makes it unlikely that he's been hiding out in the woods all this time. Authorities believe he could be in upstate New York or Florida, where he has relatives, but at the moment, they're entirely uncertain. On July 20th, 2022, Palmer was taken off the FBI's most wanted list for unknown reasons, but despite his removal, he remains a wanted murderer. Number 4. Alejandro Castillo. Alejandro Castillo was added to the FBI's most wanted list in October 2017 for killing Truc Quan Sandy Lai Lee in Charlotte, North Carolina back in August 2016. He was born in 1988 and was only 17 years old when he committed the crime. That year, he worked at a Shomar's restaurant in Charlotte and was co-workers with the 23-year-old victim. The two of them apparently dated for a brief period before breaking up, and Castillo reportedly owed Lee money but refused to pay it back. But then on August 9, 2016, he sent Lee a text stating that he wanted to finally repay her the money she'd once loaned him. That afternoon, Castillo was picked up by his new girlfriend at the time, Amia Feaster, in her Dodge Caliber, who took him to the meeting he and Lee agreed upon, a quick trip convenience store. Castillo met his ex there, which was the last place Lee was ever seen alive. Authorities believe that instead of repaying her the money, Castillo forced her to withdraw all the money from her bank account, probably at gunpoint. Lee's bank statement showed that she withdrew at least $1,000 from an ATM in one day, supporting this theory. After robbing Lee, investigators believe Castillo drove her to a remote, wooded area in Cabarrus County. He then shot her in the head and dumped her lifeless body in a nearby ravine, where it was later discovered. Afterward, Castillo and Feaster escaped in a black four-door Toyota Corolla that belonged to Lee and headed to Phoenix, Arizona. The fugitive couple parked the stolen car at a bus shelter there and abandoned the vehicle, which was later found on August 15. They continued on the run, and after making their way to Nogales, the couple crossed the border into Mexico. This move was captured by a few surveillance cameras, but since then, the two of them have yet to be seen. Investigators believe Castillo is still hiding somewhere in Mexico, possibly in Pabellón de Arteaga or in the state of Aguas Calientes. But they also think he could be in the states of Veracruz or Guanajuato. Surprisingly, Castillo's girlfriend Feaster eventually turned herself in to authorities on October 20th, 2016 in Aguas Calientes. She was taken back to the U.S. 2 days later and arrested near Houston, Texas by the Harris County Sheriff's Office. According to Feaster, Castillo disappeared at some point, and she wasn't able to find him again, prompting her to turn herself in since she was alone in a strange, foreign country. If someone you loved was wrongfully accused and sent to prison, would you try and help them escape? Or would you trust in our legal system, thinking everything would eventually be worked out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 3. Arnaldo Jimenez. Arnaldo Jimenez murdered his wife, Estrella Carrera, in Burbank, Illinois on May 12, 2012 in cold blood the day after they got married. 7 years later, on May 8, 2019, he was finally added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list. Estrella had 2 children, a 2-year-old son with Jimenez and a 9-year-old daughter from a past relationship. After their wedding at Chicago City Hall, the couple had dinner with friends and family members before heading to a nightclub. They reportedly partied there until 4 a.m. before leaving. The FBI now believes that on the way home at some point that night, the pair got into a heated argument in Jimenez's car. Then, Jimenez stabbed Estrella multiple times in the vehicle, brutally killing her. When he finally got back to his apartment, he dragged her lifeless body inside and dumped her in the bathtub. Estrella was apparently still wearing her silver wedding dress. The woman was scheduled to pick up her children from family members later that day, but she never showed up. This was when they reported her missing to police. Estrella's body was found in the apartment on May 13th, and officers found no sign of forced entry. Jimenez had also vanished along with the crime scene, his car. A state warrant was issued for the man's arrest, and the fugitive was soon accused of first-degree murder. A federal warrant was also issued to him on May 17th after he was charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Investigators tracked Jimenez to Chicago and then down through southern Illinois. but they realized that his phone was later used in Tennessee and Arkansas. Afterward, he also made calls from Houston and Hidalgo, Mexico. Today, his current whereabouts are unknown, but the FBI believes he could be hiding out in several spots including Durango, Mexico or Reynosa, Tamaulipas. Number 2. Alexis Flores. Alexis Flores was responsible for the murder of an innocent 5-year-old girl in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania back in 2000. He's a Honduran fugitive and is wanted for kidnapping and multiple sexual assault charges. Flores was added to the FBI's most wanted list on June 2, 2007, and still remains at large. During summer in 2000, a homeless drifter named Carlos was given clothing, shelter, and work by Hunting Park in Philadelphia, which was owned by Jorge Contreras. But on August 3rd, the body of Iriana de Jesus was found in the basement of an empty apartment building, the same place Carlos was staying. When authorities questioned Contreras about the death, he recognized a t-shirt from the crime scene and said he'd lent it to Carlos. After the murder, Carlos, aka Flores, left the area, but he was arrested 2 years later in Arizona for a petty shoplifting charge. Then, in 2004, officers went to Flores' new residence in response to a noise complaint. He gave fraudulent identity documents to the police and shortly after was once again arrested for possession of a forgery device. The authorities noted that when they brought him in for questioning, he had a kind, friendly demeanor and cooperated with the investigation. But when they went in to search his apartment, they found pornography all across the floors. Flores ended up serving 60 days in jail and was deported to Honduras after his release in June 2005. But a year later, his DNA was matched to the DNA found at the crime scene in the Philadelphia apartment where he murdered the young girl. It was then that police discovered that Carlos and Flores were the same person. In 2007, he was added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list, but he's been on the run ever since. Flores is considered to be armed and extremely dangerous. He speaks English and Spanish, and it's believed that he could still be in either Honduras or in the US under an alias. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information that could lead to his capture. It's time this man was finally taken off the streets. Number 1. Omar Alexander Cardenas. Omar Alexander Cardenas is an alleged member of the notorious Los Angeles-based Pierce Street gang, and he's wanted for a murder that happened in 2019. 46-year-old Jabali Dumas was shot and killed on August 15, 2019, outside a barbershop in LA's Sylmar neighborhood. Michael Moore, the LAPD chief, stated that Omar fired 9 rounds at Jabali from about 30 feet away, with one fatally striking him in the head. The victim passed away at the crime scene, and Omar was seen escaping in his vehicle after the shooting. Authorities believe that in an attempt to avoid getting arrested, Omar fled to Mexico. The fugitive was officially charged with the murder in April 2020, and in September 2021, he was also charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Then, in July 2022, Omar was added to the FBI's most wanted fugitives list, where he has remained to this day. While it's mostly believed Omar is somewhere in Mexico, the FBI thinks he could also be in Southern California, where he has many friends and family members. He could be earning money as a construction worker in order to keep a low profile. Omar is 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighs something between 240 and 300 pounds. He's Hispanic, has brown hair and brown eyes. If you see him, be sure to report to the authorities, who are offering up to $100,000 for information leading to his capture. Number 10. Dusty Mobley. If you get in trouble with the law, sometimes it's best to cut your losses and turn yourself in. Instead of surrendering, though, one man from Florida decided he should cut his lawn while running from the authorities. 40-year-old Dusty Mobley had already evaded law enforcement for weeks by July 2022. He had multiple warrants out for his arrest, and he'd already run away from one arrest attempt by jumping into a swamp and disappearing. But for his next escape, he decided to use a lawnmower. Motorized lawnmowers can be pretty fun if you're a middle-aged dad trying to make his lawn look nice. The thing is, they aren't very fast. While Dusty was stepping on the gas pedal as hard as he could, it didn't take long for police officers to catch up and finally put him in cuffs. It must have been a pretty funny scene to witness. Dusty had on a straw hat and a red shirt like a farmer, and he was hunched over the mower steering wheel as if leaning forward would make him go any faster. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Police did have to taser the criminal before they could take him downtown, and Dusty's mugshot perfectly sums up the look of regret. His eyes are empty and slightly looking in different directions, like he's contemplating all of his life choices. In the end, a gun, meth, and even a key to unlock handcuffs were confiscated from the man, suggesting that he definitely expected to run into cops sooner or later. The charges against Dusty include theft, resisting an officer, drug possession, and more. So it looks like Mower Man is finally going to face the music. Number 9. Algae. When your adrenaline is high and your heart's pumping, it can be pretty difficult to think straight. That's probably why so many people make poor choices during arrests. In 2018, a man in Cape Coral, Florida was running from police officers and would have likely only received a speeding ticket, but the fact that he tried to escape sounded alarm bells in the cops' ears. They chased after him until he suddenly leaped into a giant pool, a move he'd quickly regret making. The water was a murky green color and had large splotches of algae floating along the surface. We can only imagine what was underneath, but still, the man jumped straight in. Instantly, he sprang out of the water and started calling out for help. By this point, the original police officers had called for backup, so law enforcement surrounded the area. They helped pull the suspect out of the algae after putting some gloves on. Then, they hosed him off with some clean water to get all the gunk off him. Apparently, after ingesting some of the dirty water, the man got sick and had to be treated at the hospital. If only he'd cooperated with the cops from the beginning, he likely would have gotten off easy. But no, people love to make things difficult for themselves, especially those who break the law. Number 8. Samantha Glass. With body cams being more common among police officers, a large number of arrests gone wrong have been featured online. The cameras serve as protection for both cops and civilians in case something doesn't go well during an interaction. In August 2019, a woman was injured in Phoenix, Arizona after being approached by several officers. 36-year-old Samantha Glass was reported after several witnesses saw her try to break into her ex's truck. Earlier that same day, she'd gotten into an argument with the man, which apparently didn't end well. When police first approached Glass, she was sitting with her back against the wall outside the door of her ex-husband's apartment. They then started a casual conversation with the woman to try and figure out what was happening. Then, Officer Christopher Robinson asked some more intense questions about the truck. Glass responded, a bit irritated, saying that she didn't know anything about it. At this point, the body cam footage showed the man trying to arrest Glass, but she struggled. Robinson managed to slam the woman into the cement though, face first. Blood quickly pooled from her forehead, but luckily she was still alive. It was discovered that Glass was under the influence of alcohol at the time. Later on, police revealed that the truck in question wasn't burglarized at all. Since then, Glass has filed a lawsuit against Robinson with claims that he violated her rights and used excessive force during their interaction. Glass did resist the arrest, but she used no force or violence. She only attempted to walk away from the officers. Number 7. Rachel Clay. In August 2018, an Oklahoma woman named Rachel Clay was taken into custody for reported erratic behavior. The arresting officers put her in handcuffs before leaving her in a patrol vehicle, but they made a mistake by not watching her every move. Somehow, Rachel managed to wiggle her hands free from the handcuffs, and this allowed her to grab an AR-15 that was in the cop car. With the gun in hand, she started shooting at the officers. About 10 rounds went off as a camera in the squad vehicle captured everything on video. The suspect fires out the backseat window and hits 2 people outside. The rifle was supposed to be safe behind a metal partition, but without her cuffs, Rachel was able to reach through and access it. Within a few short minutes, she loaded the firearm, turned off the safety, and let loose. An officer's head was grazed while an innocent civilian was actually struck by a stray bullet. Thankfully, neither injuries were too serious, and the victims quickly recovered. Rachel, on the other hand, engaged in a 6-hour fight against police while she guarded herself inside the patrol car. After some time, she gave in and was finally taken to jail. Her initial charge seemed like nothing compared to the 3 added-on counts of shooting with intent to kill. Later on, she was given a drug test which confirmed everyone's suspicions. Rachel had taken meth shortly before the violent exchange. Number 6. Thomas Martin. If you've realized anything from the past few stories, it's most likely that criminals aren't that smart. At least these ones aren't. In May 2016, a Fitchburg, Massachusetts man named Thomas Martin finally came face to face with police after being on the run for 3 years for cocaine distribution charges. On a Wednesday, officers knocked on the door of the home they believed Thomas had been staying at. It was obvious that someone was inside, but no one was answering the door. But the cops decided to stick around in case anyone eventually came out. That's when they noticed the man they were after trying to climb out of a window on the property's second floor. He managed to get onto a nearby porch, but the officers were able to just walk up and apprehend him. In a desperate escape attempt, Thomas jumped off the porch, but he held onto the railing with one hand. He likely got scared at the height and wanted to pull himself back up, but a policeman grabbed onto his sweats. He eventually fell and was put into handcuffs. We have no idea how someone this stupid spent 3 years on the run. It must have been some serious dumb luck. How do you think Thomas avoided law enforcement for so long? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and join the Bad Badger fam. Number 5. Matthew Santa Cruz. At around 8:30 p.m. one night in April 2023, 23-year-old Matthew Santa Cruz led police officers on a chase down Highway 198 in California. Apparently, the young man was wanted for several violent infractions. When he noticed the cops, he quickly hopped on a bike and pedaled away as fast as he could. A patrol helicopter was used to help find him, and as it turned out, Matthew was trying to hide by the center median of the highway. The chopper sent down orders telling him to stop running and turn himself in, but Matthew instead decided to get back on the bicycle and head down the busy road. You can probably guess how this turned out. They say you shouldn't take a knife to a gunfight, and honestly, you shouldn't take a bike down a fast-moving highway meant for cars. Unsurprisingly, the man was hit at some point during the chase. Luckily, the people in the vehicle who ran into the suspect weren't injured, but Matthew certainly was. He had to be taken to the Kauai Health Medical Center for treatment, but this case is relatively new, so there isn't much information on the specifics of Matthew's charges. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out. Number 4. Delta pilot. Police officers and FBI agents are all humans, and as everyone knows, humans make mistakes because no one's perfect. That being said, law enforcement agencies should do everything in their power to avoid messing up because their mistakes could potentially have dire consequences. In April 2023, Boston FBI agents were going through a routine training exercise with personnel from the Army. They say they were given the wrong information though about which hotel room and person they were supposed to detain for their training. And apparently, agents broke into a Delta airline pilot's hotel room and took him into custody. They mistook him for a hired actor and put him in cuffs before making him wait in the shower. Over the next 45 minutes, the officers interrogated their target, but after countless questions, they realized the huge mistake that they'd made. Immediately after, they let him go and profusely apologized for the misunderstanding. The agents even called an ambulance to take a look at the pilot, but the man refused medical aid. After the incident, the FBI released a statement discussing the mishap. They said that safety is always a priority of the FBI and our law enforcement partners, and we take these incidents very seriously. As of April 6th, the pilot still hadn't released a statement about the phony arrest, but we wouldn't be surprised if he decided to file a lawsuit. That must have been a very scary and upsetting experience after all. Imagine if you were just hanging out in your hotel room and all of a sudden FBI agents swarmed in to interrogate you. Number 3. FBI. While we're on the subject of the FBI, in March 2023, a Texas man was arrested for impersonating a federal agent. A lot of times, people dress up as cops or police officers for Halloween, and while there's nothing wrong with that, the problem comes up when they start telling others that they're an actual law enforcement officer. And that's exactly what the man from our next story did. He allegedly told people that he was an FBI agent from Louisiana. When actual police officers finally caught him, they found multiple IDs from several individuals on his person. The suspect's car also didn't match up with the vehicle's VIN number, suggesting something shady was going on. Not much information about the fake federal agent has been released since the case is pretty new, but it's been revealed that 3 felony charges are being brought against the imposter, including attempted escape. If we had to guess, the guy probably just watched a few too many episodes of NCIS or Law & Order. And sometimes, people just need a reality check. Number 2. Slippery. Police officers meet a lot of interesting people. It's just part of the job. But on April 7, 2023, cops from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office in DeBary, Florida, arrested someone they'd never forget. The unnamed suspect was wanted for allegedly breaking into 2 houses. It was also obvious that he'd taken some kind of drug since he was acting like he was on a whole different planet. When the officers approached him to ask about the robbery, he quickly took all his clothes off right in front of them. He then proceeded to pour oil all over his body before running and jumping into a nearby pool. One of the policemen was heard on the body cam footage from this incident asking what was on the man, but he didn't respond. After getting wet in the pool, the lunatic tried to avoid the officers by getting onto a trampoline. With water and oil all over him, the cops had trouble grabbing onto the guy. It took some time, but eventually they got him into cuffs. It's unclear what drug the suspect took, or what his punishment will be at this time though, since this case is ongoing. Number 1. Christopher Gaddis. In February 2023, 41-year-old Christopher Gaddis was about to be arrested by Nashville police officers for refusing to cooperate with them. He also apparently had 2 warrants out for his arrest, but when the cops got closer to Christopher, he picked up a cat. He held the little kitty tightly and yelled at the officers. They tried to get him to quiet down a bit since they were at an apartment complex and didn't want to disturb other residents, but their attempts failed. As the cops came up to him, Christopher practically threw the cat into an officer's face. The sudden movement caused the cat to react, scratching and clawing at the man. Luckily though, the escape attempt with the cat didn't work. Christopher was successfully arrested, and the cop who was injured by the kitty was treated at the hospital. On top of his other existing charges, the suspect was also taken to jail for assaulting an officer and trying to resist arrest. And just in case you were curious, the cat in question is safe and sound and was placed in the care of animal control.
Number 10. A cop broke into a high school. On May 10, 2021, a former police officer turned cruise line worker broke into a high school prom in Hialeah, Florida, disguised as a teenage skateboarder trying to gain more followers on her Instagram account. 28-year-old Audrey Nicole Franceschini is an influencer who is facing multiple charges after she tried to appear much younger than her actual age. Reports indicate that she wore a backpack and carried a skateboard as props to blend in with the high school crowd. Franceschini went up to numerous students and handed them printed pamphlets with her Instagram handle. Although details of her Instagram account have not been revealed by investigators, independent news sources found an account they believe belongs to Audrey. The profile includes stories featuring her dressed in a skateboarder-style t-shirt, shorts, and mismatched trainers. Some of her posts show her wearing a Satan mask while expressing her views on various topics such as Joe Biden, designer clothes, her ex-partner, and the sheriff's office where she used to work. The woman's plan failed as soon as a school staff member spotted Franceschini and directed her to the registration office. But instead of following instructions, she began wandering through the halls of American Senior High School. She even filmed herself inside the school and shared the footage on her Instagram stories, although those posts have since disappeared. Security personnel intervened and told Franceschini to leave the campus, but she refused to comply, which prompted school administrators to be informed of a potential threat on campus. That's when she fled the school through the faculty parking lot. Law enforcement authorities tracked her down by using information from her Instagram account. They arrested her at her residence, and she made her first court appearance wearing an orange jumpsuit and mask the next day. Despite her elaborate scheme to boost her Instagram following, it appears that Franceschini's efforts have not been successful. Her primary Instagram account has a following of just 388 users, featuring mainly street art photos and pictures of a young boy who is presumably her son, along with angry rants. It is worth noting that this is not Franceschini's first encounter with the law. She previously worked as a deputy with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office in Georgia, where she faced charges in January 2017 for hacking into another female officer's phone. According to allegations, Franceschini maliciously posted private nude photos of the officer on her Instagram and Snapchat accounts. Franceschini later left her position with the sheriff's office after being placed on administrative leave. She is facing charges of burglary, trespassing, and resisting arrest as a result of her actions at the high school, and as of now, she awaits her sentence. Number 9. The Angry Girlfriend. In August 2022, a member of the El Portal Police Department in South Florida was arrested and charged with simple battery after a fight reported by the Miami Police Department. According to the arrest report, Miami police officers were called to the residence of El Portal Police Corporal Emily Garcia's partner around 4:30 a.m. in response to a domestic dispute. Both Garcia and the victim, whose identity remains undisclosed, are also police officers. The victim informed the responding officers that he and Garcia, who had been in a year-long relationship, came back from an evening spent at Flanagan's Seafood Bar and Grill, where they had multiple drinks. The victim claimed that he woke up to Garcia biting his chest and slapping him. In an attempt to defend himself, he pushed her away, causing a bruise on her upper lip. El Portal Police Chief Alejandro Jimenez issued a statement clarifying the incident occurred while Garcia was off duty and that she had been temporarily relieved of her duties with pay. Chief Mendez expressed the department's intention to thoroughly review the facts once legal proceedings conclude and take appropriate action accordingly. During Garcia's court appearance, her boyfriend came before the judge and expressed that he did not fear her and did not wish to obtain a stay-away order. So the judge imposed a modified stay-away order, permitting Garcia to have contact with the victim as long as there was no physical threats. What's more, she is prohibited from engaging in criminal activities or possessing a firearm. The judge ultimately released Garcia, indicating that she was not required to post bail to secure her release. Number 8. The Unfaithful Love Triangle. On May 22, 2023, two women in Florida confronted their cheating boyfriend at Miller's Ale House in Palmetto Bay. The jilted lovers, Ana Alicia Perez, a 34-year-old Miami-Dade police officer, and Mila Zuluaga, a 35-year-old who was 7 months pregnant at the time, confronted the man about his infidelity. What started as a heated argument quickly escalated into a physical altercation, described as a public smackdown. According to a police report, both women repeatedly struck the victim on his face and upper body. The victim, whose identity has been withheld, suffered redness on his face and a small bruise on his lower lip. The details of how the women discovered each other's involvement with the man or the duration of the love triangle remain unclear, although Zuluaga was living with him at the time. Perez admitted to roughing up her unfaithful partner and acknowledged pushing and hitting him multiple times. Zuluaga was brought to the Miami-Dade Police Department's Special Victims Bureau, while Perez was transported to the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. The specific position held by Perez within the police department and her tenure on the force has not been disclosed. As the legal process unfolds, further details may emerge regarding the circumstances surrounding this complex and distressing incident of romantic entanglement turned violent. Both Perez and Zuluaga were taken into custody and charged with 1 count of battery in connection with the assault. Following the incident, Perez was placed on administrative leave with pay pending the review of the case by the state attorney. Number 7. The School Shooting Chaos. On May 31, 2022, after the devastating school shooting that killed 19 children and 2 teachers in Uvalde, Texas, a sheriff's deputy, Christopher Lofton, from a neighboring law enforcement agency who had been dispatched to assist the Uvalde Police Department, was arrested for public intoxication. An internal investigation was conducted by the department into an incident on June 2nd, where Lofton's level of intoxication was found to be a danger to himself and others. During the incident, Lofton was off duty and stationed at temporary living quarters in Uvalde. Due to his erratic behavior, Uvalde County local law enforcement arrested him for public intoxication. Following the conclusion of the internal investigation, authorities determined that Lofton had violated multiple department policies. However, specific details regarding the policies he had breached were not disclosed in the statement. The Brazoria County Sheriff's Office recently announced that Christopher Lofton is no longer employed by the department and has been permanently relieved of his duties. Do you think his punishment should be harsher? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 6. A cop involved in drug trafficking. In July 2020, 3 individuals, including a 3-year police veteran, were arrested for their involvement in narcotics trafficking. 25-year-old Michael Sosa is accused of supplying illicit pills to 28-year-old officer Joseph Recker, who then sold them to 53-year-old Michael Corbett, a suspected street dealer. Police stopped Recker on Tuesday night shortly after he left Sosa's residence and made a surprising discovery. Upon searching his car, law enforcement found a hidden compartment in the dashboard containing illegal pills, including 100 pills of oxycodone hydrochloride. Further investigation led to a search warrant at Recker's house in West Islip, where authorities found $10,000 in cash and a substance believed to be steroids. Additional search warrants were carried out at Sosa's residence in Brentwood and Corbett's house in West Islip, resulting in them capturing over $60,000 in cash, an unserialized ghost gun, 376 grams of narcotics, and drug packaging materials. The investigation was initially prompted by a fatal overdose on September 3, 2019, involving a Long Island man who had consumed a deadly combination of fentanyl, hydrochloride, and ethanol. Analysis of the victim's cell phone led investigators to discover a connection between the dead and Officer Joseph Recker, who was the source of the pills. While it is yet to be determined if the pills sold by Recker directly caused the man's overdose, the officer faces additional charges of unauthorized use of a computer and official misconduct. All 3 men were arrested separately in Suffolk County District Court on various charges, including conspiracy, possession of a controlled substance, and sale of a controlled substance. Corbett was released without bail, while Sosa remained in custody with a $100,000 cash bail requirement. If convicted, each defendant could face a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison for their involvement in the alleged narcotics trafficking scheme. Number 5. A mysterious murder. In February 2023, a police officer from Georgia was facing charges of kidnapping and murder in connection to a young girl. Miles Bryant, a former officer in Doraville, an Atlanta suburb, had already been arrested for the death of 16-year-old Susana Morales in the summer of 2022. The teenager vanished without a trace on the evening of July 26, 2022, while walking home from her friend's apartment nearby. The family reported her missing the following morning, but the initial assessment by the police suggested that she might have run away, as there was no immediate signs of foul play. The circumstances surrounding Morales' disappearance remained shrouded in mystery until her body was discovered in February 2023 in a wooded area over 20 miles away from where she was last seen alive. The investigation swiftly focused on Bryant, who served as a courtesy officer at the apartment complex Morales had visited and where he also resided. Authorities found a gun registered to Bryant near her body, which became a critical piece of evidence. Bryant was arrested and fired on the same day after law enforcement discovered Morales' body. Although Morales' family members claimed to be unfamiliar with Bryant, it was revealed that he lived close to her apartment. The police chief of the Gwinnett Police Department revealed that Morales was likely kidnapped between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. while she was walking home and is believed to have been dead by 2 a.m. Specific details regarding her final hours were not disclosed, although there is a possibility that she was sexually assaulted. Bryant also filed a false police report on the day Morales was reported missing, claiming that his gun had been stolen. Despite this attempt to deceive investigators, Morales had not been shot to death. Following Bryant's initial arrest, 21-year-old Alicia Bates came forward and claimed that Bryant had stalked her on multiple occasions and even broke into her home, leading her to purchase a firearm for self-defense. At first, he was charged with concealing information related to the disposal of her body, but after the chilling new details emerged, Bryant was charged with felony murder and kidnapping. Number 4. A joint effort. In March 2019 in Long Island, a former NYPD police officer and his wife, who worked as a teaching assistant, were arrested on charges of operating a drug-dealing operation near a school. 59-year-old Kenneth Riggio and 53-year-old Faith Riggio were taken into custody after Nassau County police officers carried out a search warrant at their North Merrick residence after multiple tips were received by law enforcement. During the search, authorities discovered a large quantity of illegal substances, including 200 oxycodone pills, as well as cocaine, heroin, and Xanax. What's more, over $146,000 in cash was found there, along with an $85,000 cashier's check, a switchblade, envelopes, and scales. The cash found in the house appeared to be organized and packaged, strongly suggesting that it was proceeds from narcotics sales. The most alarming aspect of the situation was that the drug operation was being run across the street from a daycare center, the Belmore Merrick Administrative Building, and an alternative learning school attended by children daily. The couple's lawyer, Michael DeGarbedian, suggested that the painkillers and the substantial amount of cash could be related to a recent personal injury settlement. Kenneth Riggio had served as an NYPD officer for 4 years before being dismissed from the force in 1985 for reasons that remain undisclosed. Since leaving the police department, he has been involved in various criminal activities, with a record that includes arrests related to narcotics, driving under the influence, and assault. At the time of the arrest, Kenneth was unemployed. On the other hand, Faith Riggio has no prior criminal convictions and works as a special education aide at Camp Avenue Elementary School. Following her arrest, the school district placed her on administrative leave. Kenneth was facing multiple charges, including 3 counts of criminal possession of a controlled substance with the intent to sell, 11 counts of criminal substance possession, and 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon. He remains in custody with bail set at $500,000. Faith was charged with a single count of 5th-degree criminal possession of a controlled substance, and her bail has been set at $50,000. Number 3. The Slurring Cop. On July 4, 2022, a police officer from Florida found himself in hot water when his fellow officers discovered him driving a police cruiser while severely intoxicated. A concerned resident witnessed 25-year-old Oscar Mayorga swerving and running stop signs, prompting them to call the police and report his behavior. When Mayorga was pulled over, he admitted to consuming 3 tall cans of beer, which placed him at a blood alcohol level nearly 5 times the legal limit. Interestingly, Mayorga was scheduled to work a shift at the Opoka Police Department that evening and believed that leaving a 6-hour gap between drinking and starting his shift would be enough to sober up. The situation took a dramatic turn as police body cam footage captured the bleary-eyed Mayorga being questioned by his colleagues. His condition appeared to get worse rapidly, and he was eventually placed on a stretcher and transported to the hospital for medical treatment. Other officers came to the scene and asked Mayorga to roll down his window, instantly detecting the scent of alcohol when he complied. Mayorga, who was slurring his speech, informed the officers that he was headed to work, but his forgetfulness about an open beer can in the center cup holder raised suspicions among his colleagues. The officers informed Mayorga about the presence of the open container of alcohol, to which he responded incoherently, claiming that it was from 3 days ago. The police officers could smell alcohol on his breath, leading to his subsequent arrest for DUI. Initially, Mayorga attempted to attribute his condition to taking 3 Benadryl tablets 2 hours earlier, as they can cause drowsiness. But the officers questioning him expressed disbelief, wondering why he would consume such medication knowing that he had to work that night. Throughout the interaction, Mayorga's speech remained slurred, and he struggled to answer the officers' inquiries. They eventually had him place his hands on the car's roof and confiscated his firearm for safety reasons. When asked if he wanted to go to the hospital, Mayorga initially expressed hesitation, but then requested their assistance. Tests revealed that Mayorga's blood alcohol level was a staggering 0.391, nearly 5 times the legal limit of 0.08. As a result of his actions, Mayorga was placed on administrative leave while authorities conduct further investigations into the incident. He was taken into custody and booked into jail on $1,000 bond after refusing transfer to the hospital. Number 2. A police officer accused. In March 2020, a Louisiana deputy planted crack cocaine next to a handcuffed suspect during an arrest. The action was captured in a video that went viral on the internet. Sheriff Joseph Lopinto held a press conference to address the viral footage, stating that an internal investigation conducted by the department has revealed a different perspective. According to Sheriff Lopinto, the deputy did not plant the evidence at the arrest scene. He further stated that the suspect, 26-year-old Dominique Griffin, is remorseful for fueling false accusations against the officer and for biting one of the deputies involved in the incident. The chain of events began unfolding at approximately 3 p.m. on March 16th, when deputies responded to a 911 call that reported drug sales in Bridge City. They found the suspect, later identified as Griffin, near the intersection of 4th Street and West Wego Avenue. Griffin resisted arrest and bit one of the deputies before being subdued and handcuffed. The cell phone footage in question begins at this point, capturing Griffin on the ground, restrained with his hands behind his back, shouting claims of innocence regarding the baggie of crack cocaine. In the video, a deputy kneeling in front of Griffin is seen holding a plastic baggie containing a white substance. The deputy then transfers the baggie from his right hand to his left, before dropping it onto the grass and picking up another item. That's when Griffin and the woman recording accuse the officer of placing the baggie on the ground. The woman off camera alerts the deputy that the incident is being filmed, which prompts the officer to confront her. In response to being recorded, the deputy charges at the woman holding the phone, shouting that it is evidence. The woman attempts to flee and the video abruptly ends. The initial statement from the agency mentioned that the suspected drug evidence recovered from the scene tested negative for narcotics, but was still collected for further analysis at the crime laboratory. Later tests determined that the substance in question was indeed methamphetamine. During the internal investigation, each deputy involved in the incident was interviewed separately. According to the follow-up statement released by the sheriff's office, all deputies provided consistent accounts of the events. They maintained that the bag containing pills was removed from Griffin's pants pocket before being placed on the ground and subsequently picked up again as depicted in the social media video. As part of the investigation, detectives interviewed Griffin and executed a search warrant on his phone. The search yielded information connecting Griffin to the drugs seized from his pocket, including text messages related to the drug sales, planning and scheduling. Griffin was booked into the county jail on charges of battery of an officer with injury, and resisting arrest with force or violence. After the substance tested positive for methamphetamine, he faced 2 additional counts of drug possession. Number 1. The Drunk Cop. On March 12, 2023, an Oklahoma City police captain was arrested for driving under the influence. 55-year-old Captain James Matt French, a seasoned police veteran, was seen swerving and speeding in his unmarked SUV, which was owned by the city. The Oklahoma City Police Department released body camera footage revealing French sitting inside his vehicle in the driveway of the home he claimed to share with his mother. As the officer approached the SUV, he inquired if French had been drinking, to which French responded by saying that he was a captain of the police department. French then gestured towards his chest and quietly requested that the officer turn off the camera. Despite French's initial request, the officer disregarded it and proceeded to ask French about his alcohol consumption. In an attempt to avoid being recorded, French repeated the motion toward his chest, signaling the officer to stop the body camera recording. In disbelief, the officer firmly stated that he was not turning his camera off. The officer continued his investigation while French claimed he had been playing poker and had consumed 3 or 4 beers, with his last drink occurring around midnight, nearly 2 hours before being pulled over. When questioned about the wisdom of driving under the influence, French defended himself by saying that he drove from just 4 blocks away. During various field sobriety tests, French struggled to maintain his balance and made his request to the officer to turn off the camera for the 3rd time, pleading by saying please. The officer reminded French of the department's body cam policy, stating that he was unable to turn it off. Following the arrest, French was booked at the Oklahoma County Detention Center and has since been released on bond. With 32 years of service in the Oklahoma City Police Department, French is considered a veteran of the force. The investigation into French's arrest is ongoing and has been placed on administrative leave. Do you think any of these cops were given fair sentences for their crimes? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.